Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight on the Will and Dave Show.
Welcome to the Will and Dave Show.
Welcome, everybody, to the table. Thanks for joining us tonight on, again, the Will and Dave Show. Third time's the charm. So, tonight we're going to be talking about, a little bit about the inauguration, but also about prisons and vaccinations for both staff and inmates in those prisons. So we may talk and touch on some slightly violent crime related topics. I doubt we'll get too far into it, but just be aware that we are going to be talking about prisons and the prison system to some degree. So before we get into it, just be aware of that.
Hey, Will.
Hey, Dave.
We're having audio issues tonight.
Uh-oh, what's happening?
You're lagging again.
Do you need me to rejoin just in case?
We'll leave it for a few minutes, see what happens. Maybe in the comments, folks can let us know if it's really bad. We'll kick you out and you can come back.
Okay, sounds good.
It is a crazy week. I think we have a new president. I think it's official.
I think so too. I think, yeah. We might as well talk about the inauguration and get that out of the way then first, I guess.
So am I the only one who watched the inauguration, sort of enjoyed a few of the speeches, and then really enjoyed the hosting by Tom Hanks at the Inauguration Ball afterwards?
I didn't watch any of it.
I watched on the replay because I didn't know there was such a thing. And
I didn't either.
our show producer, Mr. JL, said, "Hey, Dave, did you know that the ball was hosted by Hanks?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't know that."
Who better to host it, honestly?
And it was very well done. Very well
Everything
done.
that Tom Hanks touches is just well done.
So I think I am going to kick you out, Will, and you can
Okay.
just hop right back in.
Sounds good.
So I watched the inauguration, and I really liked it. So I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris, and I didn't like everything they had to say, except I thought it was well done. But you have to give the inauguration really to Bernie Sanders and the memes, because he won the inauguration. Wouldn't you agree, William?
I absolutely agree. Yes, Bernie Sanders won the inauguration.
There was no... The rest of the inauguration, who cares anymore? I mean, I kind of enjoyed it, but Bernie Sanders and the mittens.
Bernie Sanders memes are our life. It's keeping the nation together at this point.
It is.
It was. I didn't watch anything involving the like. I saw some clips afterwards, but I didn't watch any of it live. Partially, I think, because I was drained from watching the actual election results and that fiasco. But also, I saw so many, even from pretty centrist people that I know. I saw a lot of talking and purveying of rumors of awful things that were going to happen at the inauguration. People were going to storm the inauguration, or there was going to be an assassination attempt, and it was all part of some plan. And it was honestly, it made me so weary of it even before it happened that I just couldn't bring myself to sit through it just to be sure. I figured if something bad happens, I'll find out about it on Twitter. But other than that, I just don't want to pay attention.
So I did watch it all, and like I said, it was an inauguration. I'm not a fan of them at the best of time. I don't think I've watched any other inauguration. I didn't watch the one for Obama. I definitely didn't watch the one for Trump.
No.
I don't think I've watched another one. And I watched it because I wanted to hear the reactions more than anything. And I thought that the reactions were rather muted, actually, to be honest. I thought they were very much like, So
I think even though the discourse we see on social media doesn't necessarily belie it, I don't think anyone wanted anything crazy to happen. I mean, people might have been like, "Oh, it wouldn't be so bad," but I think that a lot of larger groups, like actual extremist groups, now they're kind of, I don't want to say running scared, but they know they're being watched like hawks right now. They're no longer running free, like running around just getting away with anything. They're being watched like hawks, and they know it. So I think any significant group that might have had crazy plans for the inauguration probably just wrote it off because it would have been, if not literal, social suicide.
I'm thinking so. I'm thinking so. It's a
Yeah, it's amazing what the threat of consequences for stupid actions will do.
So I thought that the acres of flags all over everywhere was a, what's the word I want? A little bit overkill in terms of, I thought that they wanted to make up for not having a million people there or whatever, but
Maybe.
it just seemed to me to be it just was a little bit of a show that I don't think they had to do. But you know what? It is what it is. It's COVID. You can blame COVID.
Yeah, I mean, for people who are hyper focused on, Go America, I'm sure it was a nice, even if they wouldn't necessarily admit it. I think it's a nice gesture towards people who are uh, uh, very proud of their country. If you
Right.
can't have the crowds, you might as well have American flags every which way.
There is that, right?
Even though you and me may find it superfluous, I think that might have been a little tip of the hat towards them, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I am, for one, am glad it's over.
Thank God.
I'm glad we can move on to COVID again. I don't think I'd
Please.
ever heard myself say that.
I know, right?
Except I
Never
am going to
thought we'd
give you
be,
the
we'd
boot
be
again,
saying, "Oh,
Will,
thank goodness, COVID."
as you're off about a second.
Okay, I can try again.
So I apologize. We're going to give you the boot and we'll give it another whirl.
Okay.
So yes, I never thought that I would ever say thank you for COVID, but I've been so sick of the election for the last 3 months that I am happy to talk about COVID again. Not my favorite topic at the worst of times, but the election was even worse. And so yeah, it just is what it is. Hey, Will.
It is what it is.
Hey, that looks better.
It is what it is.
We'll see how long it lasts.
Yeah, we'll see. I tried to close down everything non-essential on my computer, so hopefully that'll make a difference.
Gotcha. So COVID,
COVID.
vaccines,
Yep.
veterans,
Yep.
and prisons.
Yep. I
Or
haven't listened
prisoners. I guess they're not really vaccinating the prisons. We should be
to.
clear.
They are that, well, at least the stuff that I've been reading about.
Right?
It was actually kind of annoyingly hard to find detailed information on the whole subject. Like normally you would think there'd be a ton of info on something as inflammatory as that, or potentially inflammatory as that, but it was surprisingly difficult.
It's so all this all came about, or this topic, William. I
Yeah.
almost forgot. We need to thank sponsors.
Oh yeah, those guys, the ones who pay
Those
the bills.
guys, yeah. Stitched by Susan. Now I want to let you guys know, and I say this without any sort of bias at all. Just go to www.stitchedbysusan.com and look at what she does. She's absolutely fantastic and amazing. Wouldn't you agree, William?
Absolutely, indubitably,
Indubitably. I love that word and I
Indubitably.
can't say it.
indubitably.
Indubitably.
There you go. That's close enough.
You grab one of the other two, Will.
Well, we'd love to thank Kelly and Dottie Hardy. I love thanking them because they provided me with this lovely sound recording device that you see in front of me. Without their assistance, both financial and emotional, we wouldn't be where we're at today. So we're very grateful for their assistance.
And we'd like to thank Howard and Karen Gertz and Rafter G Land and Cattle Company. Now, you might be able to watch this one, Karen. I will let you know on the replay.
There's a low chance of boobs coming up in a.
Oh, there, you just ruined it, Will. You just ruined it.
Mammaries. There's a low likelihood of mammaries. Of
And for
testicular
Hardee's,
glands, whatever.
if you really want to improve the show, if I get a larger mic, it'll hide my face. Just a little more money. and then you don't have to look at my ugly mug. So yeah,
Well,
but
just wait till I get an HD camera, then you can
that's
see
right.
every clogged pore on my face,
And that's
every last
coming.
one. It's coming.
Now, for those of you who don't want to give us a check or money or anything else, you want to support the show. We have looked at a number of options, and one of them that we have found that's relatively easy is called Buy Me a Coffee. And it's really simple. You go to Buy Me a I have it on the screen right now. You just head to Buy
You do?
Me a Coffee / Will and Dave Show. There is no the because it had too many characters.
So why don't you tell people how that website functions in case they don't know?
I don't know. I've never bought anybody a coffee.
Basically, from my understanding, it is a it's a site where you can make small one-time donations, the equivalent of buying somebody a coffee. So usually between $3 to $5
Exactly. You have to remember
toward the
that's
content creator of some sort.
US money. And so in
Yes.
Canadian, it's like $1,163.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So, but you can buy
Alternatively, if you want to support us in another fashion, we do accept firstborn.
ooh,
But
it
you have to pay
depends
postage.
whose firstborn it is. We'll come on. Let's be specific.
We'll just if need be, we'll just sell them for parts.
Hey Tim, I
Stem cell
don't want
research is big
Brittany.
these days.
I'm not taking Brittany off Dave's hands. Sorry, Tim.
Maybe maybe we should have an age cap. We only accept them, up to 8 years old. Otherwise,
I
the
gotcha.
food costs are just extraordinary. We think we're made of money.
So yes.
As
So
we sit here
if
and
you
beg
want to
for coffee.
support the Will and Dave Show, just look for us at buymeacoffee.com / Will and Dave Show. You can buy us a coffee, and I'll be sure and share it with William virtually.
Virtually.
No, Tim, I am sure that William did not watch Tucker Carlson, and I
Not
don't.
if I could help it.
And I don't watch him unless I have to. Having said that, I watched one of his from the other night that I really liked, and I can't remember what it was. I was going to send it to Will, and then I had second thoughts because he wouldn't watch it anyway, so I didn't send it to William.
For me, Tucker Carlson is like the old adage, no news is good news. That's what I like. I like it when Tucker Carlson doesn't say anything inflammatory enough that it pops up on my radar, and so I can just forget that he and his show exist. It makes me a happy camper. But you know what? If you like him, Tim, you like him. I mean, you show up for our show every night, so your taste in entertainment is already questionable at best.
It's one of those things, though, that he is, I believe now, the number one ranked show in America.
Thanks for reminding me.
And there is a very real, I hate to put it this way, and I'm inviting him on because I want to have him and you can talk about Tucker Carlson a little bit. He's going to hop on with us here in a second.
Oh boy.
But here's the thing, Will. There was almost 80 million who voted for Biden, or a little bit over 80, depending, and there was almost 80 million who voted for Trump.
Yep.
So there are a lot of people who think that way. It is not a minority. It is not a small, little segment of the population, and it is
A-okay.
It's real, I guess, is my point.
Yeah, see, I was going to draw a metaphor between people who like craft dinner and people who don't like craft dinner because, it's pretty split evenly who actually likes it and who just tolerates it. But I was going to say that, I wouldn't give you crap for not liking or liking craft dinner, but I do give people crap for liking or not liking Tucker Carlson. But no, I give people crap for both. So it's a terrible metaphor. But I get that it's a large portion of people a portion of the country that cares about his opinion and watches his show. It's just very much not to my tastes, partially because of his political takes, but largely due to his personality.
Yes. And I get that. For me, he represents a large segment of the population. And I would argue, in hearing some of the commentary on the left, more than Joe Biden, it just is not as many as not Trump. If you get what I
Yeah.
mean, is there a lot of people on the left who have no time of day for Joe Biden,
No,
and yet
he's just
it was a
what
no
we got
Trump
stuck
vote,
with.
and I get
Yeah.
that. But there are a lot of people who identify with the right of center vote, and it's a
Yeah,
he has
I
their
get that.
ear, and for better or for ill, I guess he has their ear.
Yeah.
We have a guest, and I'm just going to hop in here. Hey, Tim.
Number one fan, Tim.
I think you're muted, Tim. I can't hear you.
No, I'm.
Oh,
Can
there
you
you
hear
are.
me?
You just finding a good angle for his nose.
That's
Eh.
right.
Now we can be three cis white men talking about politics because nobody's done
How's it
that
going?
before. Good. How are you, Tim?
Good.
So I figured if we're going to argue about Tucker Carlson and right and left, I'm just going to get out of it and let you guys go at it, and then
I
I'll
don't have anything
mediate
to- the
afterwards.
thing is, I don't have to argue. I just like trying to think of some arbitrary example of something that is annoying. You know, pick your favorite children's television show, Paw Patrol. I respect its existence and I think it serves a purpose. I just fucking hate watching it. Pardon my French. Thank you, YouTube.
You're going to get us
I'm
completely
gonna get us.
demonetized.
I'm
you
gonna get
schmuck.
us. Oh, we lost him.
We lost Tim. He'll come back.
Okay. Hope I didn't offend him too much.
No. Oh. Hey, Tim, you're back. You're back, Tim.
Yeah, can you hear me? There's
Yep.
some real bad delay here, Dave.
I
We
got
can
you
hear
here.
you. It's a little laggy, but we got you.
You're good. Are the grandkids over, Tim?
No. Not
Oh,
at
good.
all.
Then don't turn the show on because apparently this is William's night for using language. So.
There.
Oh
Better?
yeah. Oh yeah. You're
Their
good.
poor virgin ears.
No, I had to get out of the other. I had too many tabs opened up on the computer, so I was getting too much.
Oh, you have to clean
There you
out
go.
the SCSI port on your
Oh,
computer, Tim.
Here's this old SCSI board. I need to
So there's a story there, guys. I used to work for Tim years ago before he fired me 11 times, and I used to do all of his IT work. And he had an old scanner that, for those of you who were around way back when, it operated on a SCSI port, an SCSI port, and I don't even remember what it stands for. And that was always my excuse was, it's a SCSI port, and there was problems with the SCSI port. And then he'd fire
so no,
me.
that I wanted. It's good, just a good thing, but I wanted to talk about Tucker Carlson last night.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thought he brought up a good point on what the media and how the media is perceiving the election towards COVID, and how
Right.
COVID is now seems to be far less. How can I put it? Far less problematic since the 19th of January as it is on the 21st of January. It just seems that the media is there seems to be hope now all of a sudden since Biden's been elected. The other thing that I found quite amusing is that Jeff Bezos and Amazon has now decided to help with the inoculation and the transportation of all the vaccines. On the 21st, he comes out to say that. How come they haven't said that prior to that?
Okay. So that's I have two separate responses.
Sure,
The first
yeah,
one to
yeah.
the first half. I think that media's shift in tone on COVID is very directly correlated between who's the president. I don't want to say that it's because of how Trump handled the COVID epidemic, but more how left wing media perceived his handling of like I have my own opinions on how he handled it, but left wing media certainly seems more confident that Biden's going to do a better job. Whether or not he will remains to be seen. But I think they have more out of the gate confidence in him, which who knows if it's worth it yet or not. So I think that's probably why their tone is softening, is they feel confident that the guy they elected is going to do a better job, and here's hoping he does.
I hope he does. I really do. Like, I just want to get
Huh.
back to, some kind of
Yes.
resemblance of a normal world.
Yeah.
I think we're still living in some kind of fantasy world that isn't real. That's my
Very
biggest.
much so. And then in response to the second bit with Jeff Bezos, that's actually becoming a pretty hot button topic even in left wing circles, although less with Bezos and more with Twitter, because it's coming to light that Twitter is doing a lot of not enforcing their rules, but they made sure to enforce them for the president, obviously. And so there's a lot of double standards being called against people like Twitter, because it
And
looks
that's
like they were just censoring Trump for political points, as opposed to because they truly believed that it was the right thing to do.
and that's
Like,
my biggest point, that I'm having a real issue on the playing field, and the rules are different for whoever is making the rules up. And that's the thing. Like,
yeah,
I think there's going to be some censorship towards, and I'm not right wing, I'm not left wing. I try to consider myself somewhat down the middle of the road. I really do.
I know
Um,
better.
I well, I just I just want to see some resemblance of fair and equitable reporting, which I don't think we're seeing. It depends on
oh
who
no,
they report on, and
yeah,
that's my biggest issue.
and it's I think that goes that's a pervasive problem. I think in every form of mainstream media. I just think that currently with social media's kind of blessing, left wing media has the louder voice right now.
Certainly, I agree.
But their
Well,
news sells. Each kind of political half of the news and machine panders to
You
its
know,
audience. It just
I,
happens
I'm
that one of them has a bigger megaphone.
I'm not saying that Trump is this martyr and he's such a wonderful person, but I still believe that free speech is a very important part of society and a part of life.
Agreed.
Um, I think when we start to censor that type of freedom, I think we have to look at our whole democratic society. I really
Mhm.
do.
And that's getting into a
Twitter,
topic that we're going to have to tackle eventually, which is social media and censorship, because that's going to be the next big hot button thing
and I
if it
know
isn't
I'm
already.
probably getting off topic on what your whole program is about this evening or whatever, but to me, that to me is some of the biggest issues that's out there right now. I really do.
I
Twitter can
agree.
ban Trump. Trump can be banned from Twitter, and all the fact checking and all that type of thing. Yet the Ayatollah has full freedom on Twitter. I
Yeah,
don't agree with that. Well,
yeah.
I do. Like, if we're gonna call the kettle black, then let's make a rule across the board,
That's
and
just
then
it. Expecting
censor
them to
everybody. Like,
enforce evenly.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't agree with it, but there's not much I can do as a peon sitting up in Canada.
well, there actually is, and this is where I dare to disagree with you, Tim. Even though
He's going to fire you again.
I would align with your point of view. Is we can vote now. I know in northern BC and in eastern Washington, our vote is overshadowed through the other areas of the state or the province, but we have a vote and we have to use it, and we have to be vocal, and we have. I mean, I look at people who were elected in Canada and the U.S. in the last elections, and you look at them and you say, "Really?
Yeah,
That person was elected? Seriously?"
yeah,
It is not. I just heard this actually, and it's one of the arguments against either Biden or Trump. Is there's no qualifications apparently to be president of the most powerful nation in the world, or one of the most powerful nations in the world. Is you can be
no, it's a
popular
popularity contest.
and there's no qualifications required. Is
Yeah,
like nobody looks at you and says, "Hey, are you able to run the globe?" No, you just have to
Well,
look good.
look at the United States of America.
Yeah.
The last 4 years was run by a guy that had absolutely zero political influence. He never was in the political realm in his entire life.
Yeah.
He was a businessman, billionaire, whatever you want to call it. And now you go to a 78-year-old career politician that has
Yeah.
never run a business, that has never, in my opinion, understanding how business runs, how
Mm-hmm.
how things work. Somewhere there's got
Absolutely.
to be a middle of the road guy here. Like I don't agree with either of them. Like you've got,
Right.
you talk about totally left wing and totally right wing. Where did center left, center right go? Like it's gone.
Yeah. It
It is
doesn't
gone.
exist.
And this is one of the reasons for this show and for others. There has to be a middle ground. There has to be a reaching across the aisle.
Yeah,
It
that's the
just
discourse that we're hunting for.
it just isn't happening in the media.
Well, you
And
look
this
at America, how divided you are right at this point, and I think it's just not America. It's Canadians. It's
yeah,
provincial politics. It's even
It really is.
it goes to your state politics. You look at your Senate. My good Lord, like that's turned into a gong show, in my opinion. Like you got a 50-50 split in the Senate.
the average
Like
age of our Senate is
what's going to get?
deceased.
Oh well,
uh, but that's what we're here for. That's the purpose of this show, is to be that, like, center left, center right kind of intermediary voice. Look out, Fox News, we're coming.
We're
yeah.
coming for you.
Tucker's
So
first on the hit
there's
list.
some of the issues, and I'm sorry I got a little off topic with it, but
I'll never
when I
forget you.
watched with Tucker Carlson last night, I thought he brought up some really good points. Am I a fan of him? No, I enjoy watching it. But the thing that I see with the American election this year, I've talked to a lot of my Canadian friends and whatever. I have never heard so many Canadians involved in watching
U.S.
the
politics.
the U.S. politics as it has been in the last, well, I'm going to say 4 years, but
Yeah.
especially in the last 6 to 8 months. It's
Mm.
just
Oh
been
yeah,
nonstop.
absolutely.
Like, and you look
I
at some of the friends that you and I talk about, Dave, is
Yeah.
that Doug and
Yeah.
Doug Preet and all this. We're glued to the television for the inauguration, listening to it
Absolutely.
on Twitter. Like I don't understand how we as Canadians get so wrapped up in American politics right now.
Well, it sort of is. It's a global problem. It's a
Yeah, we're
global
like
issue.
we're like the renters in the loft listening to the crack house explode downstairs. They own the building. The building's going up in flames. We're just stuck upstairs listening to it happen. It's scary, but we can't leave.
It's like
Okay.
a train wreck.
That was an analogy I don't think we'll take any further, Will. We don't want to go down that road because I'm sure there is, but yeah, it's a rough time in America, and everybody's looking. I had more people from Canada, and you were one, Tim, that it'd be in the message, or in the text or the phone call is, what the heck are we going to do? And it's this we.
We're gonna play
It's a
hockey.
global we. And I don't
Yeah.
know why, because it's an American election,
Well,
and yet it's a
I think
global
there's
we.
so many. We've always looked up to America as the sovereign leaders of the free world, and to see what's
Sucker.
happening. But what's happening right now is so unbelievable. I don't think you could rewrite history the way it has been written right now. Like it's like watching a bad movie, as Will said. Like it's
Yeah.
unbelievable of what's taking place.
It's hard to argue with that.
And let me bring up some more Canadian cross-border politics here. Let's get on with the Keystone Pipeline being canceled,
Oh,
within the first
God.
12 hours of Biden being elected. And now we've got Jason Kenney in Alberta up in arms. And, our Prime Minister Trudeau, geez, that's really sad, but we're not really going to
shucks,
do
guys.
anything. Yeah.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here, Tim, and I think I've told you this before. Why do Canadians want the Keystone Pipeline?
Well, this is where our buddy, who I'm talking
Yeah.
about, Doug.
Yeah.
Okay. I had quite a conversation with him the other day about this, and he is more than happy to see that Keystone Pipeline shut down. He thinks it's the best thing that ever happened.
Absolutely. The only hiccup is you need to move your oil out to your coasts.
Yeah, and there's the issue that we're having right now.
There's the problem.
We can't get Energy East pipeline out east because of what we're seeing out in Eastern Canada. Like Will can attest to that.
Yeah.
So that's shut down. So we can't get it out to the Irving refineries out there,
Right.
and we can't take it west because of our government that we have provincially in British Columbia.
That's correct.
Like Alberta's landlocked. It's one of the most wealthiest provinces in I'm sorry, I'm getting into Canadian politics here.
It's all good.
But the thing that bothers me there is that the transfer payments, and I don't know if some of your American listeners understand how that works, has Alberta and Western Canada had equalization payments have paid billions and billions of dollars for the have not provinces versus the have provinces.
Yeah.
Well, I think it should be going back the other way here pretty damn quick because of the way Alberta is being treated. Like they're like the redheaded stepchild of Canada.
Yeah, ever since Fort
Absolutely.
Mac and the oil field crash, the equalization payments needed another look at badly. That was years ago, and it needed a look at.
It's one of
And
those. I always have
Go ahead.
looked at the Keystone as this issue of Canada has awesome options in going out east
And to the West Coast.
or out to west. And what they do is they say, no, we're going to ship our oil into the U.S. and so they can sell it on the world market at a discount and give us a fraction of what it's worth. Let's go Keystone. And I thought
leaves us
that
wondering who in that situation, who in the middle there is getting filthy stinking rich off that engagement. Somebody's got to be making a buck.
the U.S. is.
Right.
As the U.S. is looking at Canada and saying, "I will buy your oil at a discount."
Maybe it's our turn for a little make Canada great again. A little national pride here. Stick it to the guys in the main floor.
Well, have you seen that? All the memes on Facebook has been coming out like that, make Canada great again. But we're going to be going into a federal election. I'm sure of it at the beginning. Sometime in the spring here.
Probably,
but
yeah.
With Canadian politics, and here I'm getting off topic, is
Kevin O'Leary going to run again?
Mr. Wonderful.
Maybe we can talk about Canadian politics all we want. We outnumber Dave now, so we get to decide.
Okay.
How it works. Playground rules, man.
But you look at our Governor General being, resigning from her position.
Yes.
You have to look inside every political realm within the world right now is in such upheaval. The United States is in absolute disarray, and you look at our Canadian politics, it's exactly the same way here.
Yes, it is.
Our Governor General, who just decided to resign her position because that's the way it was. My good Lord, like we have to separate from the monarchy too, and no longer be part of that whole thing. I think we have to blaze a new trail. That's my outlook there as well.
We've got our own problems. We don't need to worry about the guys downstairs.
Well, that's the thing. When you look around the world, everybody is all focused on the U.S. and the problems in the U.S. and the deaths in the U.S. with COVID. I look at Canada. You guys are doing pretty good with deaths. You're not at 400,000 and change yet.
We are doing okay with deaths, yeah.
Yeah. And we look at that as a good thing. And yet our borders are closed, and you have a prime minister who's locking everything down, and all this stuff. And your premiers are, I don't even want to look at Ontario, Will, because I know you guys are in a rough spot right now. But
he's really loving Doug Ford these days.
I'm glad
nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody is loving him.
And when I look at the world, and yet everybody is focused on the U.S. election, and they all need to quit that.
Guns, man.
And I will answer your first one, Tim, on the effects of the COVID in the media. Is honestly, I believe that the U.S. after the election, there's going to be about a year. A month or two again, which everybody is just breathe easy. The dynamics of the election are over, and then I think you'll see more of. So what are we going to do? Sort of attitude.
Yeah,
but I think everybody's tired.
The honeymoon will be over in a month.
No, I don't think the honeymoon will be over. It'll be the breathing after all the headache of the wedding. You're done and you're leaving in the car on the honeymoon, and you said
it's like the night in the hotel when you're at the airport waiting to get to the honeymoon. You're just bushed.
Yeah.
You bought lingerie and champagne, but you're just too tired. So you just go to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm on it with the metaphors tonight, okay?
You're doing well, Will.
This can go nowhere good. So that is
sorry, Karen Gertz.
Is to me when I look at the media after, and there's been a lot of people on the right who are going after the media, and again, I think that they deserve it. Except I believe everybody right now is sort of just like, oh, it's over, it's done. And now, hopefully in a week, a month or so, it'll be a pickup, and we're going to look and say, okay, now what is Biden, what's he actually doing? He was handed a huge recovery in the economy here. It was on its way back until all the local, all called lockdowns all started again.
Yeah.
And he was handed the vaccines.
Yeah. That's
So
something we have to keep in mind when in, a year from now when everyone's praising Biden for kicking the crap out of the COVID situation.
yeah,
Again, as much as I detest Trump and a lot of his government, he did get that ball rolling. That credit what work he did, the credit belongs to him. And I would hate to see Biden get handed that on a silver platter.
yeah,
But they're probably going to do their best to do exactly that. They're going to try to milk that for all it's worth.
sure they will, because he at the moment is the golden child. So
Something like that.
so yeah, so I agree with you, Tim. Although I think everybody now, I think everybody is getting a pass, including Carlson. I think he's getting a pass as well from some of the
Oh,
left
yeah.
who hated him. I think he's had some valid points. I don't like the guy. I know that you like him, and my brother likes him, and I put up with him because he says a few of the things I like. But I think that for
Well, I
most
think
of
that's
us,
probably a very good analogy. Like I put up with him because some of the things that he does say
yeah,
actually does make sense. Like I don't
Yeah.
care for everything that he says. I really don't. And I think you have to filter out what he says as how can I say, a common sense thinking person.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that he says is not good, but I really started thinking about what he said last night. And I thought, my good Lord, like it does make sense.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Oh, shut up!
There you
William.
go.
He also, and we need to remember this, he is reading off a teleprompter.
Mm-hmm.
So he is a good actor is what he is. He has a speechwriter. He doesn't write his own stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He just is a really good communicator of their narrative.
And he pulls off bow ties, so he deserves some credit for that too.
Okay, well, Tim,
So
what? Go ahead.
hopefully you like, I'll sign out here, and
Yeah.
I thank you for letting me come in. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it, and having
fun.
my 2 cents, I guess, is what you could call it, or whatever.
Anything for number one fan Tim.
Hey, I really enjoy your guys' show, and I try to watch it as often as I could. I couldn't chime in last week, but
So before
I'll,
you leave, though, Tim, I was going to have you on a week or two ago, and you were plowing snow.
yeah,
I wish I
Canadian
could send you a picture of Spokane right now. I mean, I was laughing with Susan. We were out for a walk, and the only snow that's around is where in the corner of the parking lots where they piled it 15 feet deep.
well, we're under a snowfall watch here tonight again. So
Oh gosh, I feel sorry for you.
yeah, and a lovely shoe swap.
Yes.
All
Okay,
right,
well,
guys.
thanks for coming, Tim.
Hey, thank you. You guys have a great one. I love
You
the show.
betcha. We'll see you, bud.
Yeah, bye-bye.
We might have to make it a thing in the future where we have segments. People can just call in. If we ever have a big enough audience for that, and
Yes.
people who can vet them. Also, the Tim V is still on our screen there.
Yeah, now it's not.
Hey.
I just had to learn how to get with the technology.
So where were we?
We were working on COVID there for a while.
Right, COVID and prisons. We're
Yeah.
gonna have to condense this and keep it short, so we don't run too long.
So I do think, and I don't know how to say this. And I know where I was going with this. Is I began this
You're gonna give the intro story as to why we got into this topic.
right. So early on in the life of the Will and Dave show, if you remember the comments from Rob A.
Yeah.
He was a listener, a watcher, and he wrote in, and we really enjoyed his comments and questions. We answered him as best we could with a little bit of snarky humor, and he is a veteran, and he is about my age, and he is a diabetic, and
Right.
he was in the running for the vaccine because he's high risk. He's a diabetic and all these other issues. And so he went and he asked for the vaccine. He is a veteran, so he went to the VA. And he couldn't get one. So Okay, they didn't have enough or whatever. A week later, he's reading in the paper, and a whole bunch of prisoners here at the local jail were getting the vaccine for COVID-19. And so his wife messaged me and said, "Hey, Dave, maybe this is a topic for the show. Maybe we should be looking at the vaccine and the priority for who gets it if there's a veteran who's on the line for our country." He said, "Nah, you can't." And yet there's a prison, and we have inmates who, yeah, they get it. So I said, that's a great conversation. and so it started there.
So sorry, just to backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
What's their source for said info?
Well, he was declined.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
And
in terms of like them hearing that inmates were the ones getting the vaccinations first.
Well, it wasn't first. It just
or
they were getting them.
Right.
This was about a month, 3 weeks ago, and this is here in Spokane.
Yep.
And they were receiving vaccines, and he had not gotten one. And so there was an outbreak at the prison. I mean, I don't argue that there was an outbreak at the prison, but he is at risk. The prisons are not. I don't know the number of deaths at the prison. I'm just going to see if it's in this article.
I want to check on the facility and its like what kind of security. It's minimum and medium security.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Will.
Well, it was notoriously hard for me to find information on why they were doing that, which I found kind of aggravating because I wanted to know why. Because on a surface level, my first thought was right in line with, I would imagine, his and yours, which is kind of righteous, or not righteous indignation, but indignation that people who have committed a crime and are being locked up for it are getting it before people who have put their lives in line for their country.
Well, for me, it's righteous indignation because I am more righteous than you because I don't use the F word on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Or talk about lingerie or crack houses.
That's right.
So there's two kind of indicators that I found as to why they might be making that decision. The first one is purely a numbers thing, where the spread of COVID in prisons has been abnormally high, obviously because they're in cramped quarters.
Right.
A hygiene would be difficult to maintain, etc.
Right.
And so a portion of the reason that they're vaccinating inmates is because they're using that as a way to help protect rotating staff. So part of the reason that they're vaccinating the inmates is so they can't cycle the virus amongst them. And if new staff comes in that hasn't been vaccinated for whatever reason, or visitors or whatever, they're basically trying to limit the ability for the prison to spread it out from the prison by quickly inoculating the prisoners. And then the other one is in low and medium security prisons. Part of it is because the rate at which people come in and out of it, like actual convicts come in and out of the prison, because their stay times are generally shorter, and they don't want people to come in healthy, get sick, leave, spread it, just because of the infection chance inside prison is so inordinately high.
Okay,
so those are the only two reasons I could find.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say what half the country is probably saying. I'm not going to go much higher of a ratio than that, but who would we rather died of COVID? A veteran or a prisoner?
That's getting into the numbers humanitarian side. But I mean, like in terms of spreading it, that we're not worried about the prisoners dying as much in that sense. It's worrying about the prisoners spreading it. Like if you go to prison for a month,
right,
or a couple of weeks for, small time shoplifting or something like that, a minimum security lockup, you're going there for a short while where upwards of 30% of the people in it have caught COVID. So there's a
Right.
really high chance that you're going to get it,
Right.
leave, and pass it on to other people outside of prison. So they're not trying to protect the prisoner per se. They're trying to protect all the people that the prisoner might interact with outside of prison.
There's only one small problem with that logic.
Yeah.
There is no evidence. And I say zero evidence because if you read the science and the vaccines, there is no evidence at all towards the fact it halts the transmission of the virus.
Well, no, but they would allow them to nullify the virus inside of unless new people are bringing it in. But even then,
No, because you can still be a transmitter. If you've been vaccinated,
yes,
you can still be a transmitter. So
yeah,
if you come in and somebody has it or not, it doesn't stop the transmission of the virus.
well, it won't stop it immediately. But when you have an entire prison population that is now inoculated,
Oh
the
gosh,
virus can't take hold. But again, that is I'm not saying that is necessarily justification that I agree with. I'm just saying that's the justification that I found. The only other justification was purely a mixture of humanitarian reasons and political reasons.
right.
Humanitarian in the sense that the highest percentage of people are getting sick and dying. We inoculate the highest percentage. Does it matter that they're convicts or not? Apparently not. So they vaccinate them.
So
And the
on that
political one,
topic,
yeah,
why wouldn't we give the vaccine only to the age bracket who is at risk,
yeah,
or the
and
majority? So I'm not going to say only.
that's
I'm
the
going to
hole
say
that
the
I
majority of people.
but that's the hole that I punch in it is that you don't have to vaccinate all the prisoners. You could start just like everywhere else, start with the high risk, work your way down the list. I don't see why inoculating all the or not inoculating,
Right.
vaccinating all the prisoners is such a high priority.
Why don't we let them get sick? Why don't we go in the care homes, look at the people who are dying, and give them the vaccinations?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Where you and I do not need the vaccination.
Yeah, and so it's to me it comes down like I understand why they're doing it. I get their reasons for vaccinating in prisons. I just think that their priority, like the placement in the chain of priority, is off.
Man, I
That's
don't even
me.
get it. I mean, I know what they're doing. I get
Yeah.
I can
Well,
read
the
their
other one
explanation.
is
I don't agree with it, and I don't get it because I think that it's flawed.
the other thing though is politics.
Yeah.
When you're trying to build up that voter base for the next election,
Mm-hmm.
getting prison reform is a relatively big deal, especially with the left wing. Prison reform and prisoner rehabilitation and treating them well and getting the vaccines would track really really well with that demographic. So the cynical half of me suspects that a good chunk of the reason they're doing it is purely for politics points.
Well, I think 100% of it is. I don't
Yeah,
think there is any. It's
I wish there
easy.
was a
It looks
juicier
good.
or more scientific story, but
Yeah. This whole thing with the vaccine has me really hot and bothered, and I don't. Their A is a priority of who gets it.
mhm.
If you are a doctor and you're in the hospital, every day and you deal with people who come in with COVID, hand them the vaccine, give them the vaccine. Yes, I get that. How
Mhm.
many doctors are in the U.S.? Is there 1 million doctors in the U.S.? I doubt it. Like, how long does
Probably
it
not.
take for those on the front lines to
Yeah,
get the
and
vaccine? This isn't rocket science.
yeah, the rate of deployment of the vaccine is becoming a bit of an issue.
Well, and the WHO. And the WHO
Well,
gets
yeah,
the vaccine is an issue. I don't think that there is any doubt, except I look at the prisons who are getting it now, and there are doctors on the front lines who aren't getting it because there
yeah.
aren't enough.
That's
And I
what I
say,
mean. Like the priority is off.
you think? This is where I think over time with Biden, I think we're going to get a hue and a cry from the right. Is you were handed these vaccines. The issue is not with the guy at the top of the heap. even though he's going to take all the credit if there is anything good. The issue is in the implementation, and the implementation sucks.
Yeah,
And it sucks on
it
every
does.
level.
It really does.
And it wasn't a Trump
it,
thing.
no, it's infuriating to watch because under Trump, it hurts my soul to give credit here, but under Trump, he pumped out a metric buttload of vaccine in a very short period of time. But states seem to be having an issue distributing it effectively, which is infuriating. And I haven't looked into it deep enough, but I don't understand why that is such a problem. Like, why does that bottleneck exist? Like, I just look at Canada. Just in Ontario, we managed to pump out like, what was it? I think it was 11,000 vaccine. We've only had our vaccine available for measurable in days, I think, here.
Yeah.
And we pumped out 11,000 vaccinations just yesterday alone.
Who got them?
Just in Ontario, mostly healthcare staff and long-term elderly, like on long-term care elderly folks.
Right.
So their prioritization seems to be good, and we got the vaccine into circulation slower than the states, but we seem to be implementing it a little bit more efficiently. But I don't understand where the bottleneck is for individual states in the states getting it out. They're obviously like the vaccine is in the states. They've got doses of it.
It was made here.
And they just can't seem to get them to the people fast enough. And I don't get it. Are hospitals that bogged down dealing with the actual coronavirus that getting the vaccine out is proving difficult? I don't know.
I think it's getting them out to the right people, for one.
Well, yeah,
important. I think it has been given to people in prisons and not to doctors. I know.
Yeah.
There's a mass. The local arena here is going to be set up for a mass vaccination point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's been there for like a week and a half, and there are no injections available yet. I believe it might have opened today. I'm not sure. I didn't check, but it's
we're getting a similar thing here, I think.
As I look at it, why do we have a mass injection site? I am not at risk. You are not at risk. Hand it to the old people. Hand it to the doctors. I'm sure there's not enough that everybody can have one.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's the word I'm looking for? A placebo for the average Joe who's scared of all the COVID stuff, but not actually at risk. They're like, oh, well, we're going to get a mass injection site so everyone can get it as quickly as possible. And I could probably go there and stand in line for it. And there may or may not even be any available when I get through that lineup because there's literally not enough for everyone. Like you just said, there's just not enough yet. There will be, but there is not yet.
And I look at it as a skeptic. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, and I don't want to be lumped in with anti-vaxxers. So any of you who want to yell at me about being an anti-vaxxer, I'm not. But this is an unproven vaccine. The after effects, the effects have not been proven yet. And I don't mind for those who are on the front line and not to say, you know what, it's worth the risk as you're on the front line and you are at risk and you're high risk. I do have an issue at the massive rollout and say this is going to solve everything. Everybody get to the vaccine and it's going to fix everything. I don't think we have enough information or data to do that yet.
Right.
And I have my polio vaccine and I have the vaccines I need to get. And so this is not an argument I'm anti-vaccine. This is an argument of I don't think we have the data yet to make it mandatory and to say you need this vaccine. And I think, and again, it's politics, I think it will be mandatory. And that just makes me go all squirrely.
I agree with that. I exist in this weird space in that sort of when wrestling with that concept, because I'm in agreement in the sense that it feels really weird having a vaccine for something so substantial get pumped out so fast. Like that does. My inner skeptic is like, how could that possibly be fully tested and safe? I want to believe that it's because it was a global community effort that kind of came together to make that happen on a scale unprecedented. I mean, the science now, we understand vaccines better than we ever have before. We have the manufacturing processes more streamlined than they ever have been before for any previous vaccine. I want to believe those things, but I am also skeptical. And then in terms of as a layman, as someone who's not at risk, should I be taking it? Should it be mandatory, etc. I mean, I would take it. I mean, I eat McDonald's on a regular basis. So I'm eating something that I have no concept of what is inside of it and no full understanding of what it's going to do to my body. But I do it anyways. In fact, I pay somebody else to give it to me. So me worried about what's
That's a
in the
good analogy.
vaccine.
The vaccine and McDonald's. That's a good comparison.
Look at me with the metaphors today. Um, but I do have, I do truly have trepidation around the concept of what's going to happen societally when, say 90% of the population has the vaccine.
Hmm.
How are they going to treat the population who doesn't have the vaccine? I mean, obviously, a certain portion of the population won't get it. They're the people who it's dangerous for them to take it directly. And so they rely on herd immunity. That's fine. People who, let's say it's not mandatory, let's say it is an optional vaccine, and let's say, 80% of people take it, 10% of people can't take it. They rely on the herd immunity. So you got 10%
Right.
of people who just won't take it. How are we going to treat them? Is there going to be checkpoints? Are you going to be asked when you go into stores, have you got a vaccine? Is it going to be on your driver's license? Like that's getting into really conspiratorial thinking, which I don't like
Well,
ever
I don't
doing. But
think it is, though, William, because it already is in law or in the Emergency Act or whatever in Canada, is you need to have a test before you can come home to Canada.
mhm.
And how far is it to say you need a vaccine before you can come in the country? I don't think it's that far of a stretch.
And
It it is not a tinfoil hat time. We're awful close to that.
yeah, it's this is really getting into. I mean, a lot of the topics we cover on the show are topics that I am not intimately knowledgeable enough to
Hmm.
really speak with any authority on. Um,
Our opinion is
I don't.
important, though.
Yeah, I don't know how things like how our bodies are going to adapt to COVID. Like in a couple of years from now, like this is hard to get out. So COVID antibodies. Are
Hmm.
COVID antibodies, are they purely brought on by having had COVID and gotten through it? Now you have COVID antibodies, so you're probably safe from ever catching it again. You wouldn't even need the vaccine. My body, let's say I have a healthy body, is it possible that I came into contact with COVID, it went through my body, didn't catch, I didn't get sick, and so now I have COVID antibodies. My body's been like, hey, cool, we get this now. We know how to
Right.
defend against it.
Right.
How much of that is going to play into overcoming this virus, and how much of it is going to be reliant on a physical vaccine that you have to take and then get treated differently based on whether or not you took it? So on one hand, the worst case scenario is that it becomes kind of dystopian in the sense that people are treated drastically different on a social aspect whether or not you have that specific vaccine, which is worrisome.
Hmm.
But I don't have the scientific knowledge, because then the other end of the spectrum is that the vaccine is a stopgap. It'll give us a few years until kind of the people's bodies have gotten those antibodies and we move on, kind of similar to how our body develops antibodies for various strains of the flu, or we get shots for it. And so
Right.
this flu constantly evolves as our bodies evolve to combat the flu. And is COVID just going to become part of that virulent cycle? I just don't know. So I feel very conflicted and kind of twisted on the subject, because on any given day, one day I'm feeling down about it and my brain leans towards the more dystopian aspects, and other days I'm feeling pretty hopeful about it.
Well, I think we need to look honestly at the attitude about masks,
Hmm.
sort of as a comparison. I have a friend who went to Oregon last week, or a week and a half or so ago, and he doesn't like masks. He doesn't wear them if he doesn't have to. I mean, it just is not his thing. And Oregon is one of the states which is it's required. You have to wear a mask everywhere you go. And
Hmm.
he went into Starbucks, and one of the baristas got right after him. You need to put a mask in, sir. So he lifted up over his mouth, and he said, "No, you have to put it up over your nose." And he got right angry at him. You have to put it up over your nose. And his attitude was, "Who are you to tell me?" So he left the store. He just
Hmm.
walked out and getting his coffee, and that's his right, obviously. And
Yeah.
he is required to do it. And so you have there's a feeling of the barista who said, I'm going to die if you don't. And this attitude of, you have to do it. And I'm going to get angry at you.
Yeah.
And his attitude is, I don't want to wear it. So, I'm going to ignore the rules. And neither one is right, except again, it's coming into play. And you're going to see this in the vaccine where you need the vaccine. If you don't get the vaccine, I don't want you at my house for my kid's birthday party.
Yeah. That's the stuff that I worry about. But
so I do think, William, and I think that we run this risk in the globe, or on the globe, in the world, on the globe, however the phrase goes.
All of the above.
All of the above. I think that these are only going to get worse. It'll be COVID or COVID-2 or as already, you look at Ontario, there are cases of the new strain from Britain, and the vaccine is not activated against that. And so, So are we going to do this every year? And I guess it's one of the things I look at the flu shot. And the flu shot really bothers me as it's an educated guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an educated guess. And so I don't mind it for healthcare workers. I don't mind it for people who need it. I would hate for that to be mandatory because it is an educated guess. And they acknowledge that. And they are wrong an average of 30% of the time, I believe they say, on the flu shot.
Something along those lines,
It's enough to say, for me to look at the math and say, man, I'm not getting a flu shot. And I never have. I would hate for it to be.
I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm just teasing.
Thank you, Will. Please. The hate mail we will get from all three of the listeners of this episode. But I look at, honestly, I look at the polio and these sorts of things, and I think they should be given. I think it's important as they've been proven and they have it.
Yeah.
And they are effective against polio.
Mm-hmm.
They do work. You can't get polio, apparently. I'm not going to say you can't. I'm sure it isn't.
Currently, as long as you are vaccinated, you can't.
Yes, that's right. It isn't like that with the flu, and it's not like that with COVID. So,
I haven't heard anything about the actual effectiveness of the vaccine.
No, on the new strain, though. That's the thing. There's a new strain of COVID that's come out, and it's not effective. So,
do you remember a book by Michael Crichton, Andromeda Strain? Do you remember that book?
Absolutely. I love the book.
Now we're going to get into the things that keep me up at night sometimes, because I'm worried that this is going to be just that cycle. COVID is just going to keep evolving as fast as we can develop a new vaccine for it. And maybe this is kind of a scouring type disease that's going to hit the planet really freaking hard, as if it hasn't already.
Yeah.
I try not to think about that because there's nothing I can do about it. Worrying about it isn't going to change whether or not it happens.
So isn't that the point, though, Will? Of the anti-vaccine, of the anti-masks, of the anti-everything.
Yeah,
isn't that
let's try and kill it off before it evolves.
The point of their argument is we're not going to win against the virus, so let's all get it, and then let's get it over with. Those who die are going to die. They're going to anyways.
Yeah.
So early on in this was April. It might have been in March already. Lockdowns were early on in their infancy. Oh yeah, this is when we're going to be locked down for 2 weeks to get ahead of the curve, or we're going to flatten the curve in 2 weeks.
Flatten the curve, kids.
Yeah. Only be for 2 weeks, and then this is early, and I was mad. I hated the masks. I hated all of it.
You were very upset about it.
And so I'm in this, and I called a nurse and I said, "Hey," I said, "what do you think of this?" And she laughed. She said, "Did you look at the population of the Earth? Look at how we live, how close we are. It was bound to happen."
Something was going to happen inevitably.
And I sort of liken it to forest fires.
Yeah.
You can work really hard at stopping a forest fire.
It sucks talking about human life like that, but that's nature.
It's true. I mean, you look at Hong Kong, you look at New York, you look at Los Angeles, you look at Seattle, you look at Toronto.
Yeah.
It's a petri dish
Mhm.
of sickness. And all the vaccines in the world are not
Not
going
gonna
to
save
make it a
everybody.
better
It's
place.
not gonna work.
Right. And so I think a part of this whole thing on the prioritizing of the vaccine,
Mhm.
for those of us who are able to get it and get over it, I think is a good thing. And it's horrible that people die. So why don't we give the vaccine to those who really need it? Our frontline workers
Mhm.
who are in contact with it, and the
And people who are at
elderly
risk.
who it kills at an amazing rate. And I
Yeah.
wholeheartedly agree. If you're over the age of 70,
Get it.
the odds of dying suck. I mean, let's give
Yeah.
them the vaccine. If you're under 18, unless you're a doctor, you shouldn't get the vaccine
You should
because
need the vaccine.
you're not going to die. The odds are so astronomically against you dying. And I know there
Yeah.
are people who are under 18 who have died, and I'm not
Yeah, but
minimizing their
it's
death.
low. It's like we're talking common flu type low.
Right.
It's super low. There is a lot of how to word it. On paper, I agree with you wholeheartedly in that respect. That the prioritization should be there, and that should be basically it in terms of necessary or required response. My worry is how it's going to handle or how it's going to track socially with how social media has influenced COVID and all the conspiracy theories that have come up around COVID and how people have treated each other through COVID. I worry that even if we did that and we dropped COVID numbers extremely low, there would still be a very large subsect of people that will uh, uh, society will treat you different whether or not you have the vaccine, and
You
it'll
know,
be like substantial difference. It's
yes.
not like I didn't vaccinate my kid for the flu. It's like I don't give my kid any vaccinations, and we're all going to treat them like they're that person.
Right. Right.
Whereas it's more akin to not getting your flu shot for someone who is healthy and of the appropriate age. So yeah, it's a whole lot of gray area that I'm not confident in how I feel about it, and I'm not confident in how people are going to take it as it rolls out. It's going to be a very slow, drawn out, scary process.
We're seeing it already, though, Will, with masks.
Yeah.
We're
Well, the
looking at
masks,
the attitude with masks, and I think we're going to see that with the vaccine in much. It's just going to mirror that, except it's going to be more
which bugs the crap out
antagonistic.
of me. It bugs the crap out of me with that one because masks are such a little thing. Whereas getting a vaccination that potentially has side effects, no matter how rarely, that's a significant thing. That's a hard thing to do to get a vaccination. But to wear a mask is not a hard thing. But you're right. People treat it that way.
Right.
People. I mean, I have a certain level of sympathy for people who work in like in Starbucks and places like that, where they probably deal with assholes who don't like wearing their masks many times a day, and so it becomes a really raw spot. Like it becomes touchy for them. So I have sympathy for them, but even outside of that, like I have a coworker who every time he sees someone walking alone down the street outside, not wearing their masks, like not their masks, and I'm like, at that point, it doesn't. Who are they going to cough on? A
Mm-hmm.
chipmunk? So yeah, as much as I hate to admit that you're right in that regard, because that terrifies me, I think you are. I think you're right.
So it
People are going to get
terrifies you
really
that
ugly
I'm
about it.
right, or that I'm right about that? Because of
Right
all that.
about that.
Oh, okay. It doesn't terrify you that I'm right, because it doesn't happen very often. I'm going to take advantage of it when it does. It's one of those issues, Will, that I don't know that there is a right or wrong, and I don't think that our opinions are right or wrong, and they don't even have to be educated as long as we are very clear that these are our opinions.
Their
It's
opinions, and we still follow the rule of law. Like we're not sitting here talking about wearing or not wearing masks as rebellious peeps. I wear my
no,
mask.
I
You
mean,
wear your mask,
I talk about it. I don't like wearing it, and I think it's stupid.
but you do it, and that's what matters.
Right, I do it, because it's required of me, and I'm not a rule breaker. Never
Yeah.
have been. Well, unless they were Tim's rules, then I broke them all the time. That's why he fired me 11 times. And so I got a thumbs up from Tim. I don't think it was about that, but I'm sure he would agree with that statement too. So it's one of those hard ones, Will, for me, is that I I am an anti-masker. I don't like masks. I don't look at the science of masks and think it's any better. I look at get that whole argument, and I am anti-mask, except I wear them because it's required and I need to.
Mhm.
I don't have that attitude about the vaccine. I think our vaccine is more of a political football, and it's
Yeah,
not. There is a valid use for the vaccine. There really is, and I get that. There's a valid use for masks. I think if you're a high risk individual and you work in a hospital or you work, where people are going to be near you
but
with COVID, wear a mask for crying out loud.
it's soul draining to watch people, like you say, using it like a political football and kicking around the fears and anxieties of not only a nation but literally the planet
The globe. Yeah.
for political points. Ugh, that's a
Yes.
quick way to make an anarchist out of me.
Well, I have a friend who asked me if I was the phrase, an economic anarchist. And I'm getting closer that way because I've used so many of these really as a political. It's a wrench, it's a tool, it's an object, and they use it for their own good and not for the good of the country and not for the
That's
good of the
just it.
world. And it really bothers me. And
And as much as they try to justify it by like their party is good for the people, so the thing that they're doing that kind of screws over some people, they're doing it so their party has power so they can help more people. And take that sentiment and just plant it where the sun don't shine.
yeah,
Just stick to helping people. Just that's where the buck should start and stop. It doesn't need to be a tool or a political football. It shouldn't have to be.
no.
It really, really shouldn't. To speak on like a hopeful note, that
Oh,
is something
is there a hopeful
that
note
is
tonight?
one
One.
that with how we've seen how social media has affected corruption in government, etc.
Right.
Because you and me both agree that we don't think corruption in government on the scale that we see now is news. It's just now it's visible.
Right.
Now we see more of it, both because we have access to the news and
Right.
because they get caught more often. I hope and pray that this leads us down a path of eventually when somebody does stick up that is actually for the people, when
Mm-hmm.
somebody eventually shows up, they might actually get traction. Because historically, they don't.
Right.
The people who are there for they get buried by these all-powerful political parties, just absolutely destroyed. We
Right.
barely even hear about them. But in an age of social media, when literally TikTok decides what the number one song in America is. Did you hear about that?
No. No.
The, some single released by some teenage girl who's on a Disney Channel show became the highest stream, the most streamed song in the country 2 days running. She did
In
it
the
the first
U.S.,
day.
I take it in the country
Yeah,
in the
she
U.S.
she
Okay.
broke the world record on day one of its release. Then she re-broke the record on day two. The reason she did it is because the music label gave the song out for free on TikTok so people could dance to it and make videos to it. Hundreds of millions of views on TikTok alone. And so it spreads like wildfire. They gave that song away for free to just the select people that they needed to on Tinder, the Charlie
Right.
D'Amelios and whatnot, who have these massive followings.
On
And so
TikTok
what's the
or on Tinder?
on
You said
TikTok?
on TikTok.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, did I say Tinder? I meant TikTok.
You did. Okay. Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
yeah, but the fact that something as innocuous as that can become so big so fast. I mean, obviously that's entertainment,
Right.
but there has to be a potential a potential timeline in the multiverse where that growth power, that growth factor that the internet provides could be
Mhm.
applied to a legitimately caring and concerned political party. Like
Yeah.
I pray that someday something like they don't even need to win. They just need to be visible. They just need to make enough of a footprint that people see that it can be done.
Here's the problem I see, the Will. And again, I agree with you. I'm not arguing at all because I wholeheartedly agree. But when we have an election from a TV star,
Mm.
and before that, a community organizer,
Mm-hmm.
a few before that, You have a TV star. Our new
Ronald
one.
Reagan, the
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah. Our new one is a 78-year-old man who is just not very articulate. And when you look at this, and we wonder why people look at entertainment for value, as they're not getting any value anywhere else. So why don't I get it from TikTok and the lady who dances, some new song? I don't.
We need to bridge that gap better. We need to bridge that more constructively in a healthier manner.
If you want to help us bridge the gap, if you want to help the Will and Dave Show bridge the gap,
Oh, the segue.
you can buy us a coffee.
It wasn't a segue. That was a pogo leap into the.
And I just want to say that was completely unplanned, completely unscripted. I just thought, hey,
BS. You got a sticky note somewhere being like,
we
do
can
this.
we can bridge the gap if you buy me a coffee, and I'll share it with William. I'll send him enough for a coffee. I think it's $5. I don't know how much it is, but you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave Show. You can buy us a coffee, and we will still be here every Saturday night. We'll still be that earworm that you can't get rid of.
We'll still be complaining. Don't worry.
We didn't argue that much.
We didn't, honestly. I didn't. Every time we do this, every time we pick a subject where we're like, we're probably going to butt heads on this, we're like living out our hopes and dreams for this show in the sense that we keep finding more common ground than not. And like you said the other night, it's almost frustrating because we want a little bit of juicy fireworks going on to make it exciting. But the reality is that, God forbid, even on opposite ends of the political spectrum, we've got a lot in common.
We do.
Including genetics.
So next week, William, is the 30th, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And I believe we have a guest for next week.
Ooh.
Would you like to
I can't remember his name.
Sam.
Why can't I pull up those messages? Because I would love to give a little briefer on him.
Yeah.
What was his podcast called again? We're going to look this up live.
We are. I will find it and I will throw it on the screen.
Please do, because I'd love to give him a little plug here tonight, so people could, if they want to, check him out and give him a little listen to before we have him on the show. I'm not even necessarily sure what we're going to talk about specifically with him, but I'm going to enjoy just conversing with him and picking his brain.
Let me see if I can get this. There we go.
There we go.
Yes, Autism Rocks and Rolls. Sam Mitchell.
Right.
He's a teenager who is dealing with autism in his life, and he saw our show and he contacted us and said, hey, I'd love to talk to you guys. And you know what? It hits one of the buttons with me that anytime anybody looks at life and says, you know what, I'm in charge of my life.
Right.
Irregardless of what comes my way, I'm in charge of my life. I have a lot of respect for. A lot of respect. So he contacted us, and I believe we're on for next week. I don't know that we confirmed that, so you will see it in the show notes or on the website, thewillanddaveshow.com, and you will see news there if it is not. If it's not, it'll be the week after.
Right.
And he's on the docket because it sounds like fun. He sounds like a cool guy. And
he is a cool guy. I listened to snippets from a bunch of his episodes and 1 or 2 full episodes, and yeah, he is. He has a really interesting perspective on how he manages, well, everything. Just because he has different requirements with managing his time and his mental state than we do.
I don't know. I think your mother thinks I have some problems with my mental state sometimes too.
I mean, I'm getting tested for those problems, but yeah, still.
So I just want to point out here before we go, Will,
Mm-hmm.
I'm growing a beard like you. I want to be cool like you. But the real reason is because I can't get any hair on my head, and the hair that I have on my head is not gray, and I want to show how wise I am.
See, but
And the only
I'm
gray
going to be
hair
mad
is
because
here.
you're going to have a full mustache.
Well,
I can't.
yeah.
I can't get a full mustache. I will be
I'm,
envious. I will have beard envy or
I'm gonna be
mustache
Tom
envy.
Selleck soon.
Tom Selleck, what a dreamboat. Talk about a mustache ride.
So am I the only man in America or in the world who looks at people like him and think, if I was only that cool?
You are not the only man.
Like I look at him and Tom Hanks and some of these guys who are classic. Look at Denzel Washington, and you see these people and you think, they just are. They seem
Cool,
to be
man.
really good people
Mhm.
and really cool.
Do you know who I get like not quite that exact vibe, but like a similar vibe from, even though I don't really like his movies?
No,
Seth Rogen. I don't really love Seth Rogen's movies, but I feel like he would be the kind of person that you could bump into him randomly and stay up to like 4 a.m. shooting the shit at Denny's with. Like just a casual person, an easygoing, chatty person, and he's Canadian, which is nice too.
William, I hate to bring this up.
Language.
YouTube algorithm.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons Joe Rogan went to Spotify, because he kept getting demonetized because he swore.
Yeah.
We want to move up in the algorithm, and
Thanks
you
for
keep
reminding
swearing.
me. Or
And
talking about lingerie or crack houses.
those are okay. Those are
The
not.
algorithm hasn't gotten onto that
That's
yet.
right. Those are okay. It's using those other words that hurt the
Those other
algorithm.
words. Ship high in transit.
That's right. And if you all would like to help our algorithm, hit the subscribe and the like button.
Hey, or share this with a friend.
That would be even more advantageous. Share it with a friend.
Yeah. And then pester them into liking and subscribing too. Peer pressure them. Do it. You know you want to.
So Tim thinks he's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Thanks
You're
for
our
our
number
guest
one
star
fan,
tonight.
Tim.
Number one fan, Tim.
That's right.
Well, someday we're gonna have to get him like a mug or something.
A mug.
Like a mug. Number one fan, Tim.
If you look over my shoulder, right over there.
No, like I mean, with his number one fan, Tim.
Oh, with his number one fan, I have the power. I have the power. I can make mugs like that. But we're going to be looking at some merch, guys. So if you guys are interested in the Will and Dave Show merchandise, we're looking at some mugs. Speaking of mugs.
Yeah. If you have any ideas for merch you would love to have, let us know. I mean, outside of the bog standard stuff.
Yeah. So we'd love if you bought us a coffee. And other than that, we're going to see you guys next week on the Will and Dave Show.
Stay safe. Don't die.